Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California, this is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk, and myself, JM. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless texts and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their everyday life. We're close to 20 members on Zoom and close to 50 on Facebook. Shweka helping me out in managing the social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness today.
All right, thank you very much, JM, and thank you, Shweka, for making sure everything goes smoothly. Good to see you both and good to see everybody else. Thank you for joining today. I first offer my respects to my spiritual teacher and to all of you who are on this journey. And also, in some of our other presentations that we've been having regularly, we're finding that the more in our group that are on the Zoom call that can join in with the camera on, the happier the situation gets. There's something about the reflection of the person in the window that it brings energy. There's a lot of powerful energy. So don't feel obligated, but at the same time, don't feel intimidated from turning your camera on. It's perfectly fine. In fact, it brings a lot of power to the situation, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
Just
today, yes, please go ahead, Jay.
no, I was just trying to say, like, yeah, it is lunchtime. Maybe people are taking lunch. It's okay, and this is not a business meeting. I mean, you can take lunch also if you want, if it's okay with you. Turn the camera on.
If you're building a car, a boat, running a marathon, eating lunch, fighting in a cage, whatever you're doing, it's okay with me. I just like to see you whenever possible. But I also, again, no pressure because I understand sometimes very personal turning on the camera, but that's kind of the point. One of the aims of this program really is to come closer together, heart to heart in a very personal way. And just the images makes it happen amazingly. And also, if it's a personal choice to keep it off, it's okay too. So don't feel any pressure.
The video kills the broadband. Sorry.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's
The
another
moment I turn video, I lose the audio. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So today, let's start with a little bit of introspection. As my teacher used to say, you have to introspect yourself within yourself in order to get fortified. So we'll just take a minute by sitting up a little straighter than we were a second ago. It's amazing how just by adjusting your posture, then your mind comes to an alert state. And then if you close your eyes, and notice first of all, when you close your eyes, that there's a lot of darkness because our chitta, or our mind stuff, has all kinds of things in it. But we're going to go a little deeper into the innermost workings today, and I'll talk about that in a second once we get a little settled. You can think of the chair that you're sitting on, or if you're sitting on a bench or the ground, as kind of a launching pad, and that you're the rocket. It won't be a violent ride, but definitely we're going to go for a ride. So sitting a little straight like a rocket and closing your eyes to get inward focus. Let's go to our breath. And pranayama needn't be super complicated or athletic. Really, pranayama can be effective, or the practice of breathing, by just noticing your breath and letting it become natural. Because according to the Ayurveda and the Yoga Sutras, all the functions of our body are taking place by prana. And that gets regulated by our breath. There have been studies at University of Minnesota showing that those who take time to breathe and practice pranayama at least a little bit have better health, better immune systems, a better outlook on life. And it has a lot to do with the mechanical structure of the body and the way in which our breathing affects the prana, or the various workings in the body through this energy called prana. So just breathe and relax, but stay alert. And you can stay alert by focusing your mind on one point. And for now, focus on your breath. And notice that you're breathing. Be aware that you're breathing. Usually throughout the day, although my breathing is helping me out, I'm not aware at all. I'm looking externally, going from one thing to the next. But now you have a chance to not only notice your breath, but also just appreciate it and relax and let go of any kind of frenetic energy. And now, as you continue to breathe in a natural, measured way, or that is, notice that your breath is naturally measured when you relax. Feel free to bring your awareness to your own consciousness. You are non-neural, non-temporal, non-chemical. And you can observe that which is superfluous to yourself, because ultimately you're a superior energy to the energy of mind, intelligence, ego, what to speak of the grossified material elements of your external body. And just be aware that you're aware. And you don't have to be anything else. Your awareness is a miracle. And you are a miracle. And now let's assume the position of witness. In Sanskrit, this is called Shakshi. There are things going on around you in your mind. Your body is a thing that's going on around you. The world, with all its geopolitics, movements of nature, changing of the seasons, is going on around you. And you are witnessing it all. Aloof, only watching. You have the choice what to focus your attention on, which aspects of the world to attach yourself to. Mindfulness starts by being aware of your own awareness and being aware that you have a choice of where to place your attention. See if you can sit aloof and notice that you have an external body. You have a skeleton. If you were to move a few feet above your body in your awareness and look down, as if you were looking at an X-ray, you'll see that there's a skull and a spine. There are bones in your arms and fingers, but they're not you. They're part of your external frame, just as there's a frame in a car with struts and wheels. There's seats and a steering wheel, but you're not your car, nor are you the external body that you're driving in now. Now take a moment to notice the software that runs in your mind. As the witness, see that there are energies that move within your mind through which you sort out whatever comes into your purview. Some things you accept, some things you reject. But right now, see both of those as the same. Whether you like or don't like, they're just things. And stay sama, balanced, equal, aloof. And breathe. And now to give spiritual strength within your mind, you can repeat the 2 syllables that bring spiritual strength. In your mind, you can repeat the syllables Rama. Try repeating them internally. And notice how you can speak to yourself internally without vibrating your vocal cords. Ra, ma, ra, ma, ra, ma. And now try saying the syllables externally. Rama, Rama, Rama. And bring your awareness back to your breath, which has been going on automatically, whether you are conscious of it or not, along with all the other functions in your body, which are going on automatically. Hormones are moving, blood is pumping, but we are aloof. We're only riding in the machine. You can rub your hands together to create some heat and friction and come back to the external. And then open your eyes and we'll come back into the Zoom room. And I have a couple of questions that will help us to come to some conclusions, perhaps, or at least to a thought process about today's subject, which is selfless service. And what is the difference between working without attachment or working with the idea of getting a reward for the work that I'm doing? So if I may be so bold to ask a question and see what we can get, anybody's thoughts? The first is, if you remain anonymous when you give something, is there any reward? If you remain completely anonymous, and that is not telling anybody, I just gave an anonymous donation. If you remained completely anonymous, nobody know, not even your significant other, your cat, nobody saw you do it. You gave something completely anonymously. Is there any reward? And first, let me look up the definition of reward to give us some more direction. Reward, a thing given in recognition of one's service, effort, or achievement. Comes from Old
I
French.
think
Yes, please go ahead.
that definition kind of implies a transaction. And I think there's definitely some positive benefit that is just internal. It doesn't come as a result of a transaction from one to another. So I guess according to that definition, I would say maybe no, because there would need to be a transaction. And if it's totally anonymous, then you are the only one. I guess unless you extend the definition to say you can give yourself some sense of fulfillment or positive emotion or feeling, but I would say it's just internal. There's definitely some positive internal benefit, which I'm sure is going to be the primary topic of today's, or at least a big component of today's talk.
Sounds good, Zach. Positive, something positive, some positive energy comes in. So let's see. Go
Roseanne
ahead.
just
JM, yeah.
Yeah, Roseanne just posted, I find it even more rewarding when I give that away into satisfaction, but the energy always comes back to me when I give.
Ooh, now that's powerful.
And
That's
I agree with Rosanna, Anna, and I agree with Rosanna. I rather like to give without anybody knowing, because it
And
will give you a positive, and also you didn't give that looking for external recognition, or somebody said, "Oh, how good are you?" It's just because you feel good inside.
Well, it sounds like we're getting some consensus here, and that some of you have a good experience with this, giving something anonymously without any expectation of reward. But then it seems that it's starting to trend this way, although our sample size isn't large enough yet to conclude anything. But it's starting to trend towards the idea that actually there may be more reciprocation, or some, as Zach said, some positive energy is coming into our system when we give away completely anonymously. That is phenomenal. Let's hear what else, JM.
One more thought which I had was, when we are doing it anonymous, of course, as they all are mentioning, we get internal satisfaction. And it's a conscious choice typically that you're giving anonymous, which means you don't have any expectation. Like if you typically give for some recognition, then I don't know if the recognition is going to meet your needs or not. So even despite having done the right thing, and if only one person appreciates you instead of 1,000 people appreciating you, that's what you were hoping for, then you'd go down a negative path. And also it helps you stay grounded. Like you don't suddenly think don't suddenly think high of yourself because you've not been public with that. So you're also able to stay grounded with those.
Okay, that's very helpful. Let's look at, like, what kind of reward are we looking for externally when we do something, when we are expecting reward? What do we expect? I mean, might we want back in return? Let's just name a few things. I'm just saying, take the hypothetical. Let's say you're doing something and you really were centered around, it was your motivation was you want to get some recognition for it. What do you expect? What kind of recognition would you hope for? One thing comes to my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, typically, of course, you do want to be appreciated for what you have done, and kind of somewhere equal reciprocation. Maybe I've done this favor to you, which you in turn, maybe expecting something in return, you'll do something similar back, kind of some exchange, kind of expectation, things like that.
Tit for tat.
Yeah.
Okay, I did this for
and
you.
some fame and recognition
Some
and
fame and
you know,
recognition.
popularity and things like that, you know. So I would say
Okay, so
those are
let's.
all.
Those are a few things. So might tit for tat. We want some fame or recognition, and how does how does fame stack up to the kind of internal happiness that you described? Some of you on giving without expecting any reward. If you put the two on a pan scale, one of them was fame. You had as much fame as, let's say, I don't know, name a famous person. I'm afraid to. Maybe. Go ahead, Josh. Give us a famous person. Let's say
Tina Turner.
Okay, put Tina Turner, the fame of Tina Turner on one side, and the kind of what you feel when you do something completely anonymous. And let's say, which would you take if they were being offered to you? You could be as famous as Tina Turner, or you could get that kind of reward that you feel when you give something, but you don't expect anything in return. What do you think? Which do you think is better? And be prepared to defend your answer.
When you put it that way, I would think, you know, like when you really critically look at both the things, anonymous, you know, weighs in more, but still that begs a question saying, you know, then why would most of the charities are not anonymous, you know? So
Well, that's an excellent question. And that's one of the points we're coming to today about deliberately working in such a way that we're not attached to the fruit, non-reward seeking work. And what is its benefit? And we're trying to look at it, all this is, most of this anecdotal, but we're looking at it as much as we can to analyze where does real happiness come from in our work? Which is better? So it sounded to me as if, Badri, you said that there's a, probably it's weightier doing something anonymous. And we also established that some reward is coming from somewhere, from within. Zach was suggesting there's some kind of energy that comes to us that is extremely powerful. And also, there may be some indication that even though we did it completely anonymously and we don't leak it in any way, somehow or other, it seems as if there's some kind of recognition that we're getting.
So what I was trying to say is, it's rather than recognition, it's an acknowledgement of the contribution, especially when it's non-for-profit, because it's a balancing act. If you will give energy out and it's not a closed loop or nothing comes back, that leaves a disbalanced situation which might not encourage future contribution. So when there is an acknowledgement of either donation or participation in a group donation, that a charity provided, I don't know, items for needy people. So acknowledgement is necessary, otherwise it will be nothing on the other end of the equilibrium.
That's an interesting point of view, that there's a kind of give and take, and we should be ready to accept some acknowledgement for the sake of the transaction, because love is a two-way street. If you give something out of goodwill,
The secret Santa.
Yeah.
But everyone wants to know who the secret Santa is.
Okay, nice. Well, you really added an important element to this whole thing. In some research, yes, go ahead.
No, just trying to say as to what Wolf said, also to encourage others, right? Like so that also is one way to not be anonymous. That way you encourage others as well. And one point I wanted to ask was, though if you do anonymous, I've also always found that there is some reciprocation, like it always comes back. If like some energy is watching it, and you see that in your life things happen which you don't expect, and then you kind of maybe indirectly try to map kind of why this happened to me, because maybe I've been doing good. That's why.
Okay, it always comes back. I like It always comes back. 4 words, it always comes back. Let's look at those slides. I picked out a couple of slides from a previous presentation, just a few, to talk about why the wisdom literatures describe in such detail karma and how it works. So as I've said many times, in recounting what is mentioned in the Yoga Sutras, our body is a microcosm of the world. That is our mind, called the chitta, and the external body. And there's a cycle going on of thoughts, feelings, desires, and these are called chitta vrittis, or waves, that we observed a little bit in our introspection at the very beginning. Now, we can see in nature, there are ways in which various elements go through evolution. For instance, if you take water that's in the air with a little pressure, then it becomes cloud. And then from the cloud, with a little more pressure, it becomes water, comes down to the earth. This is called the grossification of an element. There's also other elements we notice that transform. For instance, milk can become yogurt with a little culture. Yogurt then can be turned into butter. Butter then can be turned into ghee with a little processing. So similarly, the Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita describe how all the various elements that make up our body and minds are an evolution that come from the subtle to the gross. So our thoughts, thought energy leaves impression upon the chitta, the subtle substance we call mind. And as Patanjali describes in his Yoga Sutra, I'll tell you precisely where. In his Yoga Sutra 4.2, he says, Jatyantara parinama prakritya paryat. So this verse translated means jati, birth, antara, other, parinama, change, prakriti means material nature, apuryat means because of filling in. And part of that, the root of that word, apr, from Sanskrit means to pour into. So that's why I have this mold here of the feet. And that is that the subtle thoughts, which we take in our minds, then get impressed upon the chitta, and through transformation, the grossification of those thoughts is a filling in of those impressions, as when you would walk on sand and then there's a mold of your foot, and if you filled it in with some plaster, it takes a form. So the form that we have now is a result of our previous work and our previous impressions. And this is called karma. Is there one more slide? Yeah, so in this way, this journey evolving through various forms that we have is described, sometimes called reincarnation or transmigration. And it's taking place because of the impetus we've developed in the way that we work and the kind of shapes the mind, the subtle mind, is forming into now. They become filled in by the grossification of nature, and therefore we take a particular form. Okay. So relating back to that series, the mention of karma and how to become freed from the cycle of birth and repeated birth and death has to do with this purification of mind. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, this is called samatvam yoga uchate. So sama means to be equal. The mind is aloof. Yoga, uchate. Yoga really is a strategy. It's a strategy through which one can still the mind and see the self and be situated in one's actual constitutional position. So one of the ways that the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras, and all other wisdom literatures give as a means to make the mind peaceful and without these multiple impressions that cause us to take more gross bodies and other kinds of situations that we have to pay off. This is called karma, is selfless service. There's a way of working in the world, but not being attached to the reward. Service for service. And this can start with very simple things like working in a volunteer way and seeing how that starts to affect the mind. So the effect is, according to these ancient scripts, when you start to work in that way, when you think in that way, it starts a purification of the mind. Because what's causing the disturbance in the mind primarily is reward-seeking activity. So a few mantras that go with this. Caring more about how you do something than what you do. How I'm doing it rather than what I do. Something Jim Rohn said many years ago that I always appreciated in one of his seminars about living a better life. He said, the value in life is not what you get, it's what you become. The value in life is not what you get, it's what you become. And I've coined this phrase in pursuance to that and the other thoughts that we have here, that what you are is more important than what you have. What you are is more important than what you have. What we have comes and goes. The fame that you brought up, Badri, that one may get externally, that comes and goes. Have you ever known somebody to be famous and then become infamous later? Or simultaneously? It's a mixed bag. However, that energy that comes from selfless service, doing something for a higher purpose, you're doing it not because you're reward seeking, but because you're doing it either out of duty or you're doing it out of love. That's the highest motivation, according to the wisdom literatures. Duty is something beyond prospect. I'm not doing it because I want the reward. I'm doing it because I'm supposed to do this. It's what I'm functionally doing it so that it's because it's the right thing. This is called dharma. And above that, I'm motivated by love. Is a act of love more valuable? When somebody, as an example, if somebody gives you something and they do it out of love, first of all, can you perceive that it was out of love? And is it more meaningful to you than if they give it to you with some expectation of return? For instance, on an airline, maybe they'll bring you a meal, but they're paid to do that and smile at you, right? But what if somebody out of the blue brings you a meal to your house, you didn't ask them to, and they just said, I was thinking of you and I love you, so here, this is for you. Is there a difference? Let's just get to see if we get any response from that. Any thoughts you have? Which one's more valuable to you?
Definitely the one which is shared with love is more valuable. And in fact, if you see that is missing, like it's more out of some disdain or something somebody is giving you because he was forced to do so, you may not even feel like receiving it either. In the sense, you may say, no, thank you. Maybe like even though somebody is giving you, because the way it's given might repel you back.
Ooh, that's interesting. Anybody else have ever had an experience of this? If it was given out of love or gratitude, appreciation, as opposed, look, Sheila said something in the chat box. I'm not sure if it relates. Can you read it?
Yes. So Sheila says, I would rather have someone do something without wanting anything. I don't want someone from anyone that I think something from anyone that is expecting something back. Yeah, I think that's what she corrected. So if somebody's
Okay.
expecting something back, you don't feel like receiving it because you're being obliged now to respond. And also Sheila says that there is a cost for fame also. Like even though you want fame for your giving, there is a cost for that too that you bear.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Hi, I have one.
Yes.
Hi. Okay, so I just was thinking upon what you said, and it just came to me like a metaphor. You know, when it's a windy day and you have a kite, you, the person who has the kite, you expect the wind to give you something, which is able to fly the kite, but the wind doesn't expect anything from you. So the wind gives with love, and as a metaphor, I was thinking like we should be the wind we give without expecting anything in return, always full of love.
Oh, thank you very much. And how appropriate that you're in your name box, it says anonymous.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
No, that was very nice. Thank you very much. And Sheila's saying that she loves it, what you just said also.
Yeah,
Well, that
Sheila,
is,
Rashmi, everyone loves it.
well, you just compared love and the act of giving or selfless service to one of the forces of nature. I mean, we've been honing in on this since the beginning, that there is something there. I mean, can you measure it? Is there a little meter that you can buy on Amazon that measures these things? Can you measure justice? Can you measure compassion? Is there a meter that does that? Truth, is that measurable? Can you use quantum physics, or can you use, let's ask Shweka, she's a mathematician, I think, going to college. Can you use calculus to measure compassion?
No, you can.
Okay, and I set her up for that. But if that's true, and because we're breezing right through on these ideas, then it's not physical. Everything physical can be measured, no matter how subtle it is. So if it's not physical, then it is metaphysical. It's beyond physical. And the idea of working without reward, of giving out of love rather than as out of reward seeking, these are metaphysical activities. And so that's one of the reasons that the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras put this in the realm of yoga, is the work you do. And the more that you can center it around selfless service. It doesn't say that you have to give up everything and not live in a house or get what you need, but there is a way of orienting your work and the way you work around this idea that I'm doing it out of service and not being in the mode of a reward seeking for it. And that there's a consequence for that, and that is the mind becomes purified. And we start to be able to perceive our higher self. Why? Because working in that way is metaphysical.
We have Rashmi who just posted, it's something inherent within you that you want to do things out of love, compassion, truly without any pretension. So what she's trying to refer to is that given your chitta is getting purified, given your internal is getting purified, then these becomes natural to you. And that's why you do it. So it's a positive vicious cycle kind of.
Yes, and this is in harmony with the teachings of the Gita and the Yoga Sutras and so forth. And that is, it's our very nature to love and to do service. These two things are what are called our dharma. It's the one inseparable point of all living beings. And I'm not talking just about humans. You can observe this in animals. For instance, animals love their offspring, they protect them and so forth. And there's a sense of love that they have. And so this is the living condition, and it's actually dharma, or the nature of consciousness, to serve and to love. So that the more that one can remove the coverings and experience that directly, that service, selfless service, and that unabated love, the happier one becomes. Sheila's got something else there, JM.
Yeah, there are two. One is from Amulya. She posted before saying, one interesting thought, I appreciated the air hostess giving me snack when I was kid more than now. As a kid, I didn't know that they were paid to do that, but now I know. So that the level of appreciation has changed. And
Yeah, I mean, just to say that, you know, if somebody gives you something and you think, oh, thank you very much, and later on it turns out there were strings attached, you might reassess. We're very subtle in the way we judge what's important in life. And, you know, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that person just wanted to borrow my lawnmower. That's why they brought me cookies. You know, I mean, these are subtle, but they're actually, they're real. Yes.
And also
Yes.
something important to me, more than if somebody gives you something, rather than the price or is, to me, is the significance, how it comes from the heart. It could be even a piece of paper with something said that I love you, or a smile face or something. But if they do that with their full heart, to me it's more meaningful that they have given me, I don't know, a very expensive car or something that is very valuable in money. To me it's more important that a small piece of paper that is saying something that is given with the full heart.
Anna, brilliant, brilliant. You just brought another element to this conversation. Let me give you an analogy of that I've heard several times from my teacher. Let's just say that on Mother's Day, okay, the mother and the daughter finds out it's Mother's Day and goes out to the garden in the backyard. The little daughter, she's maybe 5 years old. Her mother's been working very hard to make the garden, grow the flowers, do everything. So the little girl goes out in the back. She picks one of the flowers, and with full heart, she comes in to surprise her mother and says, I brought you this. Now, the mother is the one who planted the seed and watered it and brought it up. But now when the daughter, out of this sense of just, I love you, Mom, and brings it in and hands it to her, where is the value in that? I mean, that flower is worth how much? So, Anna, I mean, such a nice point that you made. There's some transmission there of something that's invaluable. And that's far more important to us than the price of the flower. And, you know, if somebody gave you a flower or a bouquet of flowers, but obviously they wanted your vote or something like that, it might change the quality of the exchange, right? Here, I'm depending on your vote, or I'd like to sell your house for you when you're ready, and here's some flowers. I mean, it's nice. We still appreciate some thoughtfulness, but there's a different quality to it. So this is thanks to Anna. We're talking on this level. There's this sense that the Yoga Sutra, for instance, talks about Kriya Yoga, the yoga of action. We have to work. We have to move in the world. So what does enlightened action look like? It has to do with the way in which we're working. What is our intention? That is metaphysical. You can't measure it with something you get from Ace Hardware. But it's the most powerful force in the whole universe. And not only that, when one starts to work in that way, there's a result that comes naturally, and that is that the chitta, the mind, starts to become purified. The impressions that are left in my mind where I have intense desires, attachments to various things in the world, begins to diminish, because what we're talking about, attachment to compassion, justice, love, you can't, of course, it's all semantics, really, ultimately, or it is semantics, not all semantics, but the point is, these are not things the way other rewards here in the material world are. As I proposed earlier, they are metaphysical. So spiritual or enlightened life means the way we move and the way we work. And when I change my motivation for work, then the work itself becomes purifying. And this is what's called karma yoga. Karma comes from the root word kri in Sanskrit, which means to move, to act. And we have to act, we have to move. You can't stop. So how are you going to move? There's a big difference between moving out of debt because I have to and moving because I want to out of love. So karma means debt. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker, I owe, it's off to work I go? That's what karma is. I'm moving because I have to pay off the debts for all the things that I took. Now you got to pay for them. But when we're in the mood of giving, then, and we're working for a different reason, selfless service, then this is not called karma anymore. It's called akarma. In Sanskrit, when you put the a in front of a verb, then it reverses the meaning. So karma or debt becomes non-debt, or it becomes, very interestingly, non-action. Action is what binds us to this world, but akarma means I'm working, but I'm not really working because I'm not touching the world. The world and things and the only reason I touch them is because I'm attached to them. After all, they're all just things, right? But when I say they're my things, then I have a different relationship with those. And that's what binds me to the world. After all, what do I care if things come or go ultimately? Can you answer that? Why would I care if some things in my life come or go? Just in a really simple statement, what would you say? Why do you care?
Generally, you are apprehensive, like you want to have enough for your future. So fear of future is one thing that you would be attached to it.
Okay. And what about from a sense of, like if you describe it in a sense of entitlement?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
No, what you said is true also. I mean, there is a hierarchy of needs. And again, I'm not advocating we don't have things or we don't interact with them, but I'm just saying, how do we designate things differently in the world when they are blank? There's one word I'm looking for that goes before the things that changes them. From just things to
My things.
my things. Yeah, so what's the difference between a car and my car?
So I think, if I may, I
Please.
think that accumulation of material things is more simplistic approach to the results, to the accomplishments. A bigger house, multiple houses, and multiple cars. And that would ease our minds. But love, you cannot quantify. Are you surrounded by 20 relatives and 150 people that know you from the community at your deathbed? Is that the quantitative recognition for the love that you gave through your life? So that's the approach. The majority of the people are concentrating on things because it's easy to quantify. It's easy to manifest and represent. While our small contributions out of love, they might go by unnoticed. And, you know, the legacy that we leave behind.
Thank you, Wolf. Very helpful.
Thank you.
It leads me to another question, if I may. What if you did have, for instance, let's say you were a king or a queen and you had a palace or 5 palaces. Would it be possible if you had 5 palaces and so much wealth you couldn't even count it all, to also work in a detached way? Or does it require that you're destitute, you don't have anything? Just as a disclaimer, I have an answer in my mind that comes from the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm trying to go in a certain direction, but I'd like to hear what you think because of the vein that we're in right now. Does it make a difference if you're rich or poor? Let's just say you have a huge palace, 5 palaces, or you live in a little grass hut. does one of them mean that you could be more detached than another, or does it depend on something else? What is your opinion? That's open. Open fair.
Unless you leave that palace behind to convert it into a hospital with your name on it.
Okay, so there is an indication there, Wolf's giving, that if you're using it for a different reason than just trying to enjoy it, would that be the essence of it? In other words, you could, if the reason that you're using something is higher minded, then it becomes a more noble cause. And just because you have resources doesn't disqualify you from being noble or using it for a noble cause. Is that the essence of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 5 palaces versus 5 palaces that got converted into orphanage.
So that you just got us there really fast, Wolf, where I was going.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is a 1 hour program, but yeah, that's the essence of it. So, for instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that you can live in the world but not be touched by it. And that doesn't matter, because you could live in a hut and be a miserly person and envious of of mankind and of animals and of nature and everything else, or you could live with a lot of facility surrounding you, but also at the same time, your consciousness is different. The way you're using it is actually high-minded and benevolent. So the opinion of Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras that I keep referring to, are that it's the consciousness with which you use those things that matters. So matter doesn't really matter until we ascribe a particular label to it. And if I say this is mine and I hoard it, as one of you suggested, that's just accumulation. I think Wolf was saying that just accumulation is for the sake of it, for the saying that I have more stuff, it becomes a burden. And we become squashed by it, or more and more fame just for the sake of being famous. It doesn't actually satisfy us. But whatever we have, if we're using it for a higher cause, then it becomes transformed. And an example that my teacher used to give is an iron rod. You look at how when it's put in fire and left in fire long enough, then it becomes transformed from iron to fire. It becomes fire-like. It has all the same properties as fire. So whatever I have, whatever work I'm doing, if my intention in doing it is for service, and I use it in that way, then that material thing becomes transformed into something that's beyond material. It becomes metaphysical by the power of my intention. So this is the one of the directions for yoga. And again, yoga, samat vam yoga uchite. Yoga means, uchite in Sanskrit means is called. So samat vam yoga uchite means yoga is called the stilling of the mind. When the mind becomes still and peaceful, you can see yourself. The human body, incidentally, according to the ancient scriptures, is actually meant so that you can see your higher self and see your original conscious source. We're only looking in the wrong direction, and we're getting it all gummed up because of contrary kinds of consciousness. So it's simply a matter of repurposing and stilling the mind. And so yoga is a strategy for doing that. And one of the main strategies for all this is called karma yoga, work yoga. How I work and the reason that I'm working in the world makes all the difference in the world. And I have one last question, if I may, that it's in the same realm as the previous questions, but maybe slight nuance. May I? Any thumbs up for the last question? Okay, I got a few here on the main screen. All right, so we have many identities in our life. Would you say that's true or false?
It's true.
Could somebody name maybe if you have more than one identity, could you name it? I mean, you don't have to reveal anything that we're going to talk to immigration services. But just tell me in a practical way what identities you might have in your life. You might have different names or jobs or
Yeah.
whatever. Yes.
So I am Rajesh at home, and nickname is my Bittu. I am born in India. I'm a Himachali. I'm a dad. I'm a son. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I don't know. So many.
So what name do your children call you? Do they call you Rajesh?
No, they call me dad.
They call you dad. Okay.
Papa.
Papa.
Yes, yes.
So you got different names, different identities, different labels that you can put on yourself, right? Does anybody else, can you relate to this? Do you have different identities, labels, names?
Sheila and Virginia on chat saying, it's true, mother, sister, spouse, wife, administrator.
Yeah, Mark was going to say.
Yeah, I want to add, sometimes I identify with my emotions or my feelings, and I'll say, I am angry.
Ooh.
I am happy. And I think that's me sometimes.
I like that, Mark. Thank you very much. That was really, really helpful. Added another element to this whole thing. Okay, so this this portrait of ourselves, we may look at, it may be multifaceted, because we may be Papa, we may be Mama, we may be the CEO. I think I've just some Bob Dylan songs coming into my mind, naming all these things I might be. And then, so now, which one are we? Which one are we? If you were going to spin a wheel and it had all those identities on it, and then clack, 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 and it stops on one, which one would you say that's me?
Depends on the
All
moment.
of you.
All of them are you?
Yeah.
So we have, do we have split personality? Michael?
Yes, in the moment, we are
Multi-
many of those things.
Thank you. Yeah, in the moment we're identifying with so many of them, we move almost seamlessly from one to the next.
Or maybe we're none of them, and we're just the awareness of all of them.
Yeah.
Ooh, now you're getting somewhere. I like that a lot. So what did we do in the beginning? We were the ones looking basically at our identity. We were the Sakshi. So one thing, I think therefore I am, means that I am something. Because even if I negate it and say I'm nothing, then I just made a conscious act. So who was the consciousness that said I'm nothing? So now if I step back and I start looking as the witness and I look out at all those identities, all the different bodies I've had, even in this life, every 7 years, all the cells in your body change. So you don't even have the same physical frame you did before, although due to DNA, it takes a uniform shape, but it changes. So which one are we? So this is one of the essential questions for how to attain this kind of karma yoga, is saying, as Mark was just saying, like, maybe I'm none of these identities, but if I can identify which one of them I actually am beyond all of them, this is called finding your dharma, your jiva dharma, or what is your essence. And when I identify that essence and I'm actually able to be myself and not something artificial and not a designation that's temporary, then when I work and I am working because that's my actual identity beyond all the temporary designations that I have, this work becomes perfectly aligned. And this is called yoga, the yoga of action, aligned when I know what myself is. So that's defined as in the Vedas. There are various descriptions of the self, which is actually, in negative terms, it's non-neural. It's non-temporal. In other words, it always exists. It's not something that comes and goes like the body or the mind. And it's also, it has properties that cannot be measured with quantum physics or anything else that measures matter. The instruments are too gross to measure the subtlety of your non-material self, which is what's animating the body and what's behind it all. So the conclusion that the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras and other ancient scriptures bring us to is that aligning oneself with one's identity beyond the temporary designations that we have and working for a higher cause, that is service, puts us not only in a non-reactive state, I'm not getting karma anymore, but also it's immediately edifying. We feel happy because we're working according to our actual nature and not doing something artificial. And since I ran us out of time, let's just see if there's any final reflections from the session or any questions.
I have one question,
Yeah.
you said the content, the action should be beyond all identities. What does that really mean? Like as a dad, when you're taking care of your children or something like that, how can you be like completely detached from that identity?
Absolutely.
Oh.
You're absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought this up because it helps tie up a loose end. The answer is not only can't you, but you shouldn't, according to the teachings of yoga, because there's a description that we have two identities in this world. One is called vyavaharika, which means our practical identity in the world. And then we have our paramartika identity, which is what I've just been describing. That is, we're beyond the designation of the body. However, if you don't acknowledge on one level that you have some duty to do according to the relationship with your body, then your life will be in chaos and you won't be able to pursue the paramartika or the higher purpose. Your body is an instrument, it's a vehicle, and you have to use it. So I'll just give an example. So if you go for a job interview and you sit down and they say, okay, where are you from and who are you? And you say, I'm non-neural, I'm non-temporal, I'm not from this world. I'm a metaphysical entity. You won't get the job. And so the way you interact with the world is called vyavaharika. However, there's an acknowledgement at the same time. There's not a dreamlike state that I am my life situation, I am my job, I am my car, I am my particular nationality. And from the paramartika point of view, which you can hold simultaneously as you work in the world in an enlightened way, the paramartika point of view is that, yes, I'm moving around in these temporary designations, but I'm aloof. I actually am aloof at the same time. So these two things have to be held because we're in the situation we're in now, and you can't simply shrug it off and walk away. And let's just say you come home and you treat your family in an aloof way. They're not gonna grow up properly. Your kids will not have proper psychological support, nor will your spouse or anybody else if you take that kind of a view. And incidentally, just because somebody's spiritual, it doesn't mean that they're cold or aloof. Actually, the point is, if one has that paramartika vision, one actually puts more heart into one's worldly relationships. One can be more expert at what one's doing in the world because you're operating with more perspective and you're able to do both simultaneously. They are in one way mutually exclusive, but we can do both things at the same time and be effective at them. Well, Thank you very much, everybody, for so much participation today. Did we leave anything on the board there, JM?
Yeah, there are quite a few reflections echoing what we have been discussing primarily.
Okay, so let's just end the session with a couple of mantras to recenter ourselves. So if you just sit up a little straighter than you were before, and we'll do the mantra Nitai Gauranga, which is very powerful mantra which awakens the compassion within the heart. And we can do from behind closed mics 5 times. I'll say it. If you like, you can just say it simultaneously. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Thank you, JM and Shwekaf, for making this all happen. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining in today, and all the comments and participation, and for giving your kind attention for more than an hour. And I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. And if everything's still here and intact, we'll do our best to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you.